A reading from Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph went up to the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house of the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time for a baby to be born, she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and wrapped him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord." A reading from Psalm chapter 16, verse 11. You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with the joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand.
Have you ever found yourself in the presence of someone who just radiates joy? Someone who seems to possess an inner light, a contagious warmth, a serenity or peace about who they are, their place in the world, their future, regardless of their present circumstances. We can all probably think of someone whom we describe as happy, someone perhaps who has attained a certain level of success or achievement in life, or in their career, or in their 401k, or in some other ambition, and has found contentment or even pleasure in their current circumstance. Or maybe it's someone whose life seems to be free from disappointment, grief, adversity, or uncertainty, or some other challenge. And all the pieces seem to be falling into place and everything's going their way, just as any of us would hope for ourselves. But isn't this what we all desire? Happiness. So we spend the better part of our lives in pursuit of it. Success, contentment, freedom from worry or hardship, the assurance that everything's just as it should be. Happiness, as Aristotle said, is the meaning and purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. Or according to another great philosopher, Dr. Seuss, in his seminal work, Oh, the Places You'll Go, we're all headed to some amazing places, and our lives are really going to be wonderful. Kid, you'll move mountains. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. Wherever you fly, you'll be the best of the best. Wherever you go, you will top all the rest. And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. But then we soon discover that it's the unguaranteed 1.25% of life that often gets in the way of being truly happy. And that on most days, it's a whole lot more than just 1.25%. We get a flat tire on our morning commute, or have one of those so-called crucial conversations with our boss at work, or we receive a rejection letter from the college admissions office, or suffer a sudden heartbreak, or break up, or we hear from the doctor about the biopsy. And we discover then that this whole other side of the story to life is not all that amazing, and we're not going to be doing some incredible things after all. The side of the story where people we love die or disappoint us or leave us. A side of the story where we make terrible choices or suffer terrible luck or face terrible loss. The side of the story where we fail at something that really matters, or we succeed at something only to find that we've lost what really matters. And that's when we realize that happiness is so fleeting and disappointment is so inevitable, and that no one ever actually promised us that we were going to be president of the United States or have a monument fashioned in our image or at least have a sandwich named after us someday. Happiness is wonderful and indispensable, but it's also so momentary and elusive. And the more we chase it, the more it seems to elude us. But it's in those moments when happiness seems to have escaped us that God offers us a more enduring and rewarding alternative to happiness. It's called joy. We can all think of people who seem happy, but have you ever known someone who radiates with joy? You can usually spot them by the inner light that glows within them, or by the way they delight in small, simple pleasures and are grateful for the larger ones, or by how, even though they are far from perfect and still make mistakes like all of us, they are guided by certain unshakable commitments in life, usually to enduring things like faith, family, relationships, a calling larger than themselves, instead of temporal things like possessions or titles or reputations or appearances. Most joyful people I know have faced their own share of adversity and unhappiness in life, only it did not break them. Instead, it seemed to have matured them, deepened them, enlarged their souls. And their ego no longer drives the bus. They no longer assume that life owes them something, or that they do not deserve what they're going through. They seem to have a sense that everything belongs, that they've been put on this earth for a purpose, that what is most meaningful in life is found in the moment. It can be tempting to romanticize or idealize such people, but joyful people are most often so quiet and unassuming that you might not even notice them. I've spoken before here about such a person I once knew, an older member of the very first church I pastored in Southern California years ago. In her mid-80s, she was the eldest member in a congregation with an average age of about 35 at the time. She was a widow, a mother who had known grief and personal pain. She was a person of deep faith and wisdom, quiet joy, and we became close over the years. And after she suffered a stroke that left her unable to walk or speak, I would visit her at her home. We'd sit together in her backyard watching the squirrels scamper across the brick wall, the hummingbirds dance at the feeder. Though paralyzed on one side, she could still write with her other hand. And she would communicate by writing messages on a small notepad. She'd write, I'd read and comment, and she'd respond again in writing. For months, this was how we talked to each other. But then it happened that she was no longer able to swallow food, and she made the decision to forego a feeding tube that might prolong her life. She was at peace with her decision. And one day on her small notepad, she wrote the following words: "Can't walk, can't eat, can't talk." She showed me the message. I nodded. And then she scribbled the most curious words of all: "I am blessed." I paused to reflect on the strange logic of that statement. Can't walk, can't eat, can't talk. I am blessed. And when I looked up at her, I could see, behind her crooked smile, a pure light radiating from deep within her. It wasn't happiness. It was joy. And life isn't easy for joyful people. They have a serenity about them, however, a settled resolve. And they can teach us that joy is not just a feeling, it's an outlook. While happiness is the byproduct of the temporary victories we achieve in life, there is another experience called joy, something more permanent, that animates people who have surrendered themselves to a higher purpose. And at the heart of the Christmas story is this experience of joy that transcends circumstance and is found in the most unlikely, most unassuming people imaginable. In our gospel reading, Luke introduces them to us by first giving us some important details about their historical circumstances, which of course are overwhelmingly bleak and hopeless. In the Luke reading, Augustus, the Roman emperor, has issued a decree that all Jews of Judea must return to their birthplace to be registered. It's here that we learn the human cost of occupying a foreign country, of subjugating an entire group of people, of maintaining peace and order in a land where everyone resents you as an occupier and oppressor. Emperor Augustus must fund the machine of the so-called Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. So he calls for a census that will enable him to tax the Jews in order to fund the very military apparatus that will keep them from rebelling. So there's not much joy in this backstory to this story. The Jews of Judea, already miserable and agitated under Roman rule, must now be registered for the census. And no one's happy about it. Everyone's inconvenienced, uprooted, on the move. Even some unknown pregnant peasant girl and her new husband from Nazareth, who are unable to find a hospitable place to give birth to their first child. There's no room for them anywhere. At what should have been a happy moment for them has turned into the worst moment of their lives. It's unfair, it's unconscionable, it's a complete injustice. But this is life under empire, and this is what the law dictates. And meanwhile, according to Luke, there are some unremarkable, irrelevant shepherds in the fields of Judea. They're watching over their flocks, battling the elements, working long hours, pulling the night shift for less than a living wage, barely able to make ends meet. They live at the bottom of the socio-economic ladder, invisible and forgotten. They are nobodies. Oh, the places you'll go, someone once said of them, but they never once left their fields. They never once left their flocks or their dismal station in life. Happiness had eluded them their whole lives, until a divine messenger broke into the humdrum reality of their existence that night. An unexpected intrusion into the ordinary bluesy rhythms of their predictable, cheerless way of life. "Do not be afraid," said the stranger. "I am bringing you good news of great joy for all the people. Today in the city of David, the Messiah has been born. You go there and you will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth, lying in a manger." At the bottom of the socio-economic religious world of first century Palestine, these shepherds would have no right, no expectation, no hope in the world of ever being touched by the divine. And yet the joy of the world was revealed to them before anyone else. And when the messenger departed, they believed. They looked beyond their own bleak and hopeless circumstances, and they said, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see for ourselves." And when they found Mary and Joseph and the child lying in the manger, they told them what the angel had revealed to them. And Luke says all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds told them. Even Mary treasured all these words, pondered them in her heart. And it's a beautiful scene. All these discarded people, whom the world had deemed unhappy, now radiating with a joy that the world can scarcely comprehend. At the heart of the Christmas story is this experience of joy that transcends happiness born of circumstance and is found in the humblest, most anguished people on earth. Notice that the divine messenger didn't deliver this good news of great joy to the priests and pietists of the temple, or to the rich and powerful of Rome, or even to the comfortable and successful masses living in the suburbs. The messenger came to those who could look beyond their own circumstances to see something more meaningful, more purposeful than mere happiness to give their lives to. It's a lesson for anyone who assumes that happiness is the epitome of life, and that success or notoriety or a life absent of hardship or disappointment is the fertile soil out of which joy somehow emerges. But it's a lesson we mostly resist in the modern world until inevitably something happens. Maybe after climbing the ladder that promises to lead us to happiness, we get to the very top rung and we see everything we've accomplished, and it's not as satisfying as we had anticipated. And maybe we wonder, is this all there is? And maybe we sense that there must be a deeper, more meaningful journey we can still take. Or maybe in our pursuit of happiness, we get knocked off that ladder by some failure, or by bad luck, or by something completely out of our control, like a corporate layoff, a divorce, a bankruptcy. Something happens to our career, to our family, to our reputation, and suddenly life doesn't look like a steady climb up the ladder of success. It now has a different, more disappointing shape. Or maybe something happens in our life that knocks us off the ladder altogether. The death of someone we love, a cancer diagnosis, addiction, some tragedy. And we fall off the ladder into the valley of bewilderment or suffering. And such experiences can expose the deepest parts of ourselves, reminding us that we're not the people we thought we were. But they can also break us open, and they can reveal to us another layer to ourselves that maybe we've been neglecting, that bedrock of the soul where our most powerful yearnings live. Some people shrivel in the face of any of those experiences. When what once made them happy escapes them or is taken from them, they get more fearful or resentful. They shrink away from their inner depths. Their lives become smaller, lonelier. They nurse eternal grievances. They live their lives as an endless lament about some wrong done to them long ago. But for others, like the shepherds, like Mary and Joseph, this valley of bewilderment is the making of them. They see deeper into themselves and realize that down in that substrate, flowing from all the tender places, there's a yearning to transcend the self and care for others. They're ready to become a whole person, finally. They see their present world with new eyes. Their life is now defined by how they respond to their moment of greatest adversity. Years ago, I took a group of high school students to Los Angeles for a week-long urban mission trip. Our assignment was to paint a house for an elderly resident in South Central Los Angeles, and nothing that week went particularly well. Our group slept all week on a gym floor, suffered a lice outbreak, and endured one very miserable night of food poisoning. We were actually sent to the wrong house to paint, which, as you might imagine, didn't go over too well with the owner of that house. No one, including me as the pastor, was particularly happy that week, but we survived, we served. On the drive back to San Diego, I asked one of the students, "Are you tired?" He nodded his head. He said, "I've never been this tired in my whole life." I agreed. But then he added these words, "But it's the best tired I've ever been." Maybe that's the real aim of life, to be that tired one day. All our lives, we've been living in a culture that teaches us to pursue happiness in the forms of comfort, possessions, success, or fame. But the Christmas story is about a handful of people who are not interested at all in what other people tell them to want. They want only what is truly worth wanting: a life rooted in God's presence, a purpose larger than the self, a mission that makes them the best tired they've ever been, a love that doesn't abandon them in the valley, a joy that cannot be taken from them, not by Rome, not by circumstance, not even by death. And it's the same joy that comes looking for each of us in Advent. Not the happiness we manufacture, but the joy that's born in us. Not the happiness that depends on things going right, but the joy that meets us when everything's gone wrong. Not the happiness that waits at the top of the ladder, but the joy that awaits us in a humble manger. So perhaps the invitation of Advent is simply this: to stop climbing the ladder long enough to kneel at the manger, to stop chasing happiness long enough to be surprised by the joy waiting to be born within us. Our takeaways for today: joy runs deeper than happiness. Joy rises from the valleys of our lives. Joy is born when we trade the climb for calling.